We left off our discussion following the speakership battle in the House of Representatives, the GOP's inability to pick who is going to lead the party and thus the House, on it seeming like, even though a difficult journey, Steve Scalise, the former or the current majority leader, who's now running for speaker, it seemed like he had the most most likely path to the speakership based on being nominated by the conference. And since then, a lot has changed. He's dropped out of the race for speaker, and now Jim Jordan has been nominated by the conference, which is unfortunate. I've said many times, anyone that the GOP is able to rally around in the House of Representatives with who has power and influence right now, it's not going to be good. It's a bunch of bad options, but Jim Jordan is among the worst. And so where things stand now, I'll pull up this CNBC article for you. You have Jordan, who obviously is the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, defeated Representative Austin Scott of Georgia, which is a strange revelation of the last 24 hours where this Austin Scott, sort of unknown congressman, just popped into the race in a closed-door internal party vote Friday, 124 to 81. So 124 people voted for Jordan there. But then once again, we come back to the same issue. Yes, he could get the nomination, as did Scalise, but nothing beyond that. The article continues. After nominating Jordan, the conference took a second secret ballot vote to gauge support for Jordan now that he was the nominee. On this vote, Jordan came away with 152 votes for him and 55 against, far short of the 217 he would need in a formal vote on the House floor. And so then they left for the weekend. And that's where things stand as of now, which they just can't figure out how to fulfill a very basic, one of the most, maybe the most basic obligation of governance, choosing who's going to lead you in that governance. They can't pick who will be the leader of their conference. And thus, the operations of the House of Representatives are just at a standstill, which is not good for the American people, for the world, and our response to crises such as what we're seeing take place right now in Israel and Gaza. And the House of Representatives is just MIA because of the lack of leadership. And I want to get to, while we're talking about Jim Jordan, who currently, I think if you get nominated, it's fair to say you're, where things stand there, the most likely to become the speaker, even if difficult. So now the most likely person to become Speaker of the House, let's talk a little bit about him. As Newsweek writes, former GOP Representative Liz Cheney warned Republicans that nominating Congressman Jim Jordan for the House speakership could cost them the majority in the lower chamber. We'll jump over to the X post being referenced, or the tweet. Jim Jordan, Liz Cheney writes, was involved in Trump's conspiracy to steal the election and seize power. He urged that Pence refuse to count lawful electoral votes. If Republicans nominate Jordan to be speaker, they'll be abandoning the Constitution, they'll lose the House majority, and they'll deserve it. And Liz Cheney is exactly correct there. As a reminder of what this unconstitutional, anti-democratic, and just deeply, deeply dishonest rhetoric sounded like from Jim Jordan over the last few years, here's a compilation that was put together.
I don't know how you can ever convince me that President Trump didn't actually win this thing based on all the things you see, the 11 million more votes. He won 19 to 20 bellwether counties. He won Ohio by 8, Iowa by 8, Florida by 3. Somehow it doesn't become. So you go through all the things. I get all that.
It's exactly what the Democrats wanted. They knew President Trump was going to win on election night, but they wanted to keep looking for and finding and counting ballots until they got over the top. They were going to win the election after the election, and that's what they did with this crazy mail-in ballot scheme.
The American people deserve to hear the truth on Wednesday. They deserve to understand what exactly took place in these states where they did not follow the Constitution. They couldn't do it in a constitutional fashion, so they changed election law in an unconstitutional manner. There was fraud on top of the unconstitutional way they ran the election. Then they added fraud on top of it, and that's why President Trump wasn't elected president.
Got 11 million more votes than he did in 2016, and House Republicans won 27 of 27 toss-up races. But somehow, the guy who never left his house wins the election?
When you have over 70% of the 75 million who voted for President Trump think the election was rigged, that's 50-some million people, over a third of the electorate. That is a very, very unhealthy situation.
And that was put together, or at least sent out, by Sarah Longwell on X, so credit to her. Quickly, that last part, so irrational. You go around, I've said this before, Marjorie Greene will use this line too. You go around lying about the election, convincing people it was stolen without evidence, and then you use to justify your lies about the election that a lot of people believe it was stolen. But you did what? That's not at all how that works. You are prominent and influential, and you use that prominence and influence to make people believe something. And then when pressed on why you're doing something so dishonest and dangerous, oh no, it has to be true because all these people believe it that I told to believe it. Ridiculous. But it's important as he tries to brand himself as more moderate to win over moderate Republicans and as someone who could actually be the Speaker of the House. We can't forget, we have to make sure others don't forget as well who Jim Jordan is. And yes, he has a long history of also allegations we talked about in the past that are extremely concerning, and just policy stances we would disagree with. But beyond that, as we talk about what sets you even more apart in why you're not qualified to be a leader in such an important position of power is when you participated in and supported an effort to overthrow our lawful democratic constitutional process in the interest of Trump staying in power. And that is almost like nothing else you could possibly do in how bad it is as an elected official, using your power to do something against the very foundation of our democracy. And so calling that out is really important as he attempts to get into a very important position of power and tries to convince people in the interest of doing that he's maybe not as radical as you thought he was, not as hardcore MAGA as you thought he was, but he definitely is those things. And we, at least, won't forget it.